Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everybody. My name is MiAh the King, and if you build a man to fire, he'll be warm for a day. But if you set a man on fire, he'll be warm for the rest of his life. Now then, today we're taking a look at a game just released on Steam called Vertical Kingdom. A puzzle city builder kind of game with cards, cause I just love to have card mechanics in every game I play. Did I mention it was also considered a roguelike? Anyway, it was developed by Farlight Games Industry and published by Freedom Games, released not in early access and selling for $20. So, what is this game? Well, it's about what I said. It's a city builder game, more of a puzzle game because you have to figure out what to build, when to build it, do it in the right order, and make sure that you do the right things in the right way to be able to pass the level and move on to the next one. Each level has you starting out with nothing and you having to build a big successful city before you're overcome with any number of problems, all while betting everything on your personal luck because if you don't draw the right cards, then you're just screwed. You play as the Royal Architect, the guy who is in charge of the building plans for His Majesty the Emperor. Your empire is in trouble and he calls upon you to fix it for him because he's lazy and inadequate at his job. So you go around building small towns left and right to create this chain of resource gathering hubs. That's pretty much the story. Build towns and explore vast reaches of the Empire's territories and expand the domain to save it. Now then, as always, let's go right into the good and the bad, starting off with the good. So the first positive I want to talk about is the price tag. For a little game like this, I'm very happy to see that they didn't overcharge us. The price tag is very appropriate for everything here. In this game, I'm happy to say you're getting what you pay for. Is that good? Is that bad? Well, that's up for you to decide. But basically, I think that the price tag is decent and average and perfect for this. Next up for the positives is the gameplay. The gameplay here is actually not as bad as I thought it would be. I hate the idea of card-based games because they always depend on luck, and for me personally, my luck with video games is the absolute worst. However, if you take away the card-based mechanic, everything else here works really well, and they have a lot of cool stuff included here. First off, it's called Vertical Kingdom because you're constantly building up. You can build buildings on top of one another, but only some kinds. And you're basically trying to expand, and the only real direction you can go is up, so the game gives you several different ways to make this a possibility, which is kind of unique. Then the card drawing mechanic. It's not that bad, like I've seen worse. But that's not all. You also have a kind of campaign mode where you go on mission after mission, each one fairly simple. Get a large population, then move on, all to gain a blanket resource called Imperial Resources, and then you can even return to the Emperor's Castle and use those resources to give yourself a boost as you make adjustments and improvements to the Empire, thus giving you more of a head start on levels or whatever. Not only that, there are also little random scenarios that will show up as you're traveling across this route, these like level by level because it's like on a map. So level by level you'll click on the next spot to go to and there will be like a little event that pops up and it'll have a little story and a bunch of decisions for you to make, and you can spend your Imperial resources on these little choices depending on what you want to do, and they'll give you little bonuses and whatever else. Like, that's kind of cool. There's also a war mechanic, but I didn't really understand it. The tutorial just never popped up for it, so I have no idea what was going on or if I even did anything, but it was still a cool idea, I guess. I just wish I could have, enjoyed it, like if I actually knew what it was. But surprisingly, the game had me hooked fairly quickly as I was constantly trying to do better and succeed where I had previously failed. All in all, it was just addictive enough and just fun enough that I almost forgot to tape this review, and that I almost forgot my hatred of such games that are, luck-based. You need basic resources, and every time you draw new cards, it's like hitting the in turn button, right? So when this happens, you collect more resources, and you could build certain structures that will provide you with more resources per turn, from loyalty of your people to food and lumber to faith and taxes. There's a lot here to manage, and it's done fairly well in my opinion. Next up for the positives is the sound design. Now, it's not all that awesome, to be honest, but it's not awful either. The only reason I'm bringing it up is because the music was actually rather nice for a casual puzzle city builder game like this. I can still hear it in my head even as I write this review in silence. It's got that perfect background music that helps you immerse yourself in what you're doing. The sound effects are decent enough, but there's absolutely no ambiance, not really anyway, and no voice acting. But man, that music, it really just helps you sink right into what you're doing, and I gotta give it props for that. And last but not least is the stability and the user interface. The UI is simple enough, easy to learn and understand and navigate, doesn't look ugly, isn't overbearing or overcomplicated, and the game was fairly stable. As far as I know, I didn't experience any bugs or glitches, frame rate drops or crashes or anything like that, which again, it's kind of good to see that in a fully released game, because most time when fully released games come, there's always problems, but not with this one. This one worked really well. And that's all I got positively to say about the game. Up next is the negatives, but before that, would you please do me a favor? I would really appreciate it if you guys and girls out there could support the growth of my channel. How? Well, hitting the like button, leaving a comment, and subscribing really helps, but what helps more is if you share my content online. Spread the word of my channel and my videos helps me a lot more. So if you found my video entertaining or at least informative, then please consider supporting my growth today. Thank you. Now then, on to the negatives. The tutorial, that's the first negative. This is exactly how I do not like my tutorials to be. They give a solitary image, but then 2 paragraphs of text to read. Now, granted, it's not the worst tutorial I've ever seen, but I really just started to zone out when they threw pages of text at me, expecting me to read it, understand it, without the ability to put it into practice. Eventually, I just skimmed through and barely understood because it was just so boring and so poorly crafted. Oh, and sometimes it just didn't show up at all. Like when I was trying to build a wonder and no tutorial came up telling me where to find the wonder to build it or how to build it or how to start it or anything like that. And I clicked on all the little buttons and nothing was popping up. Or when they told me enemy soldiers were coming and I had to prepare for war. I'm a damn architect, number 1, not a general. So why the hell do I need to worry about war at all? But regardless, they didn't give me a single tutorial for combat, war prep, or anything, so not only was it overly complicated and boring for such a simple game, it was missing in some key areas. So that's why the tutorial is on my negatives, because I hated that tutorial. And honestly, that's all I can really think of for the negatives. Like, don't get me wrong, I have plenty of gripes and complaints about this game, but they're mainly personal annoyances. But when I think about the game's design, its structure, its overall build, and the way it's all put together, I can't really pinpoint anything else that's actually objectively negative about the game's design. In terms of its development, it's actually really well put together. So, my overall thoughts. Well, if you take my personal opinion out of it, I think this is a fairly well-designed game with an interesting concept and a new take on city builders. It's interesting, it's different, it's cheap, and it's well put together, and it plays smoothly. But if you take my personal opinion into account, I just don't really find myself liking the game. I hate the card mechanic, I hate the confusing nature of his building mechanics, I hate that I need to wait until late game and able to level the research of certain things, but then, by that point, I have no room to build those things because it's late game in the level and I needed other stuff. You pretty much have to build every turn because otherwise you lose loyalty, and if you lose too much loyalty, it's game over. So it's kind of like a circle of ultimate doom. You have to build every turn, so you have to fill up every space, but then a problem happens and you have to build a certain building which you have to research, but then can't place anywhere because you ran out of room because you had to build each turn or lose loyalty. You see what I'm saying? Like, you see this awful spiral we're going down here? It's a puzzle game, card game, city builder game. I don't like puzzle games or card games, but I love city builder games, which is why I came here in the first place. So for me personally, I didn't really enjoy the game that much, but you might. If you like roguelike games, or if you like puzzle games or card games, then you'll probably really like this game. The mechanics are there, it works well, it does what it sets out to do. So if you're even remotely interested in this game, even after everything you've heard, then I would highly encourage you to check it out because it is designed well for what it is. I personally just didn't like what it was. However, if you were just looking for a simple city builder game, then I would suggest you look elsewhere. Alright everybody? Alright, so that's it. That's all I got. Thanks so much for watching, with a special thanks to those of you who stuck around till the end. If you have any questions or concerns, please let me know in the comments down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I can't wait to see you all again on my next adventure. So until then, I bid you all farewell.